Hey everybody, I'm Bob. Welcome to my shop. We're going to do a 360 shop tour today. 360 is new to me, so hopefully it'll work out, but we'll see. If you're not familiar with 360, you can do it a couple different ways. If you're on your PC, you can just click and drag, and it'll move the camera around, and you can look anywhere in the space, up, down, left, right, wherever you want. If you're on mobile, then you can actually just take it and physically move it around, and it'll move the camera around. So I'm going to try to talk to this part of the camera, so in case you don't want to spin around, you can just look at me. So let's talk about the shop. This room is 20 feet by 12 feet. It's half of a 2-car garage. Not quite a 1-car garage, but this room used to be a 2-car garage before we bought the house. They closed up the front, put carpet in, and turned it into like a game room. So it's just one big open room. I worked in it for a while with my office, and then we decided eventually that I needed a place to make a mess and a place not to make a mess. So I built that wall back there, and it cuts the room just about in half, not quite. And then there's a door right over there that goes into my office. Speaking of doors, this door goes out to the front of the house. So this is how I bring in lumber or materials or anything. Comes in through this door, so it's nice and easy to get to. That door right there goes into the house, into the downstairs of our house. And then that one right there, the open door, goes into my office. We'll look at the office another time, but for now I just want to talk about the shop. Alright, so let's talk about lighting. 2 big shop lights here. They're like super bright. I don't know if they're super bright for you, but they're super bright for me. Got a cheap clamp light there. I've got a couple of those floating around, but these are the ones that stay up all the time. Now I do have the same color temperature in all the bulbs and all my lights. And that makes it easier for filming, so I don't have some that have like a yellow tint, some that have a blue tint. You'll see that a lot in some shots, on some videos, but in mine I tried to keep everything the same color temperature so I don't have to adjust it when I'm editing. Now I also have these lights up here, and these are really just being stored up there. They don't stay up there. I don't use them up there very often, but I can plug them in. They're LED panels. They have a lot of LEDs, and you can kind of aim them, but each one is on a stand, so really they're just hooked up there. I can lift them down and aim them at something. So the cool thing about shop lights is that they put a lot of light down. They don't put a lot of light sideways. So if they have light coming down on something, but I need to shoot something from the side, it usually doesn't have all the light I need. So these things come down to be able to light the side, or light my face if I'm talking to a camera, so I don't have just light coming down on the top of my head. It gives you some weird shadows. So all of the lights are 6000K. That's the daylight temperature, that's what they call it, or around there. So yeah, those are my lights. Power, I've got a 20 amp circuit on that wall, 20 amp on that wall, and then all the lights and a few other plugs are running off a 15 amp circuit. I had those put in because I didn't have enough power. So with 2 20 amp circuits, I have the dust collector running on one of them, and then most of the other power tools on the other one. So if there's 2 big tools running at the same time, it's not too much for my fuses. I have an old fuse box, glass fuses, so it's not like I can just pop a breaker back on. I actually have to replace the fuse if I blow it. So I made sure to get 2 20 amp circuits so I have plenty of power. That's that. Let's go over here. Let's talk about this stuff. We'll just go around the room. So in one of my videos about a year ago, I made a really simple clamp rack system. These are the same ones in the same place, and I've added more clamps to them, but I haven't really changed them, and they work fine. They're really easy, really cheap, like made out of scrap, but they work great. So all my clamps in this corner. I've got off-cut storage down here of sheet goods, so lots of extra pieces of plywood. I don't have a lot of storage for lumber, so this is kind of where a lot of that lands. There's a little plexiglass and other stuff in there as well. So right here, or on my table saw, let's talk about my table saw. This is a saw stop cabinet saw. I saved up for this for a long time because I wanted to get one saw that was like my final table saw that was really good, and I could not be happier with this. It's a really, really sturdy, well-made machine. They're not paying me to say that. I bought that with my own money, and I love it. It's awesome. I do have the base level fence that comes with it. You can upgrade it for several $100s, but this is like an awesome fence. It's perfectly straight and sturdy. I don't know why you would spend any more to get something else, but anyway, the one that comes with it is really good. So somebody was asking me about that the other day. So over here next to the saw, push sticks. All this push sticks and jigs are right here, easy to get to, hearing protection, ventilation. I usually have safety glasses right here too. And that way if I'm at the saw, I can get to everything I need to right here. I don't have to stop what I'm doing and go find something. It's all right here. Sleds and jigs are hung up right here because the space is hard to get to, and they're not things that I use very often. So I can get to them. I have some kind of strange jigs back there. I have a big crosscut sled right here that you've seen in my videos. People ask me about it all the time. It's based off of the one that Steve Ramsey made, so there's nothing special that I did to it. So I did make a video. If you're interested in a good, simple crosscut sled, go check out Steve's video, because it's good, and I use it a lot. It's really big, and so I drop it down right here, and I can lift it right up onto the saw, use it, and then just get it right back out of the way. You'll see I have a ShopFox air cleaner up here, which is like the cheap version of Grizzly, I think. But it works great. It gets a lot of the airborne dust out, and you can actually like see it being cleaned out of the air, which is fantastic. So that's a worthwhile addition to a small shop for sure. So I've got a shelf up here that runs the length of the room, and that's where I keep finishes and paints. And they're up there for a couple of reasons. One, because I have a lot of them. I don't have a great place to put them. But more importantly, they're up there because they're out of reach. My kids don't come into the shop without permission. It's actually really hard for them to get in here without permission. But if they did sneak in here somehow, I want chemicals and paints to be the hardest thing for them to get to, because they would, it would be dangerous. So I have finishes and lacquers and spray paint and clear coats, all that stuff over here. And then on this other side, I've got things that are also in containers, but they're not really finishes. A lot of epoxies and lubricants and wax and finishes and like some oils, mold release, wood filler, stuff like that I use more often. It's easier to get to stuff over here. So I've got my shop computer right here, which is really just a monitor on a stand, and I've got a video about this as well. And all the cables run through the wall to the computer, which is on the other side of the wall to keep dust out of it. So it's in my office. That is all run by a cordless keyboard and a trackpad that I have right here. It's Bluetooth, so it works through the wall fine. So that's what I use for my shop computer, which controls my X-Carve. And the X-Carve is so big that I have to get it out of the way. So I made a video about being able to fold it down, use it, do whatever I need to. It's easy to clean up because I can get to the whole thing. And then when I'm done, I fold it up. I have had some people say like it's probably bending it, or it's probably not very rigid anymore because I'm folding it up and down. I've not had any trouble with it at all. It seems to work great. It's been fine where it is. So let's go back over here. All these different hand tools are mostly held up by these Harbor Freight magnet strips, which are like hanging magnet things, which are like $4 or $5, but they're great because you can hold pretty much any hand tool that you, or anything that you want to on them. So rather than having specific holders for screwdrivers and for wrenches, pliers, all that stuff, you can kind of throw anything you want to on there. I would highly recommend them. A lot of people don't like Harbor Freight tools, and even though some of them are just fine, but the really big thing about Harbor Freight is that you can get stuff like that to make your shop better and easier and faster, and it's super cheap. So things like the magnetic hangers are really good. I've gotten these big containers of zip ties that are like this big around and that long for a couple of dollars. The consumables like that, or small shop things, are really handy, really cheap from Harbor Freight. I've got these really long power strips, so I can have a bunch of things plugged in, and they're really cheap. They're from Harbor Freight as well. Also from Harbor Freight, my dust collector. I used to have a shop vac system, dust collection system that was run by a shop vac, and it worked fine, but eventually I moved some tools around and I had to tear that whole thing out, and rather than put it back in, I just got this because it's a little bit heavier, more heavy duty, and this has two intakes on it. So one snakes around and goes to the back of the table saw, the other goes around and goes to the bandsaw. And everything else is just cleaned up with a normal shop vac, kind of manually. Works fine. This thing is really good and powerful. I upgraded the bag. If you get this, you want to upgrade the bag to a 1 micron bag. Did that. So my drill press is a Grizzly. And this thing's really heavy duty. I love it. It's not like the most expensive one or anything, but it's really powerful, really sturdy, and I like having it here. I put that on a table that I made in one of my videos. Really simple construction. It's great for making a simple work table, and it can support a lot of weight, and this thing is really heavy. Speaking of tables, we'll go down here and talk about my work table. This is another really simple but different construction, made out of 2x4s with a 1/2 inch MDF top. And I used MDF up here because it's really flat, really straight, and when I destroy it, which I have several times, I can unscrew it, throw another sheet on, and I've got a nice flat top ready to go. So in that case, I don't worry about messing the top up. I don't worry about drilling through it or getting paint or something on it, because it's easy to change, and it's not like I have a really nice woodworking bench that I would, tear up or something. So this works really well, and this same kind of structure can be expanded out to make it as big or as small as you want. Underneath it, I've got shop vac, a bunch of other tools that I don't really use very often that I can pull out. Small joiner, my planer, belt sander. I do have an orbital sander that's always plugged in right here, so I can just grab it, do some work, throw it back under there. It's something I use a lot on a lot of different projects. And then down here, just a bunch of scrap bins, things that I hang on to longer than I should, a bunch of junk that I don't get rid of. Let's talk about bandsaw. So my bandsaw is a Grizzly. I don't have a lot of experience with different ones, but I love this one. It's great. It's the anniversary edition of one of them, the 555, and it's very solid. It's a good saw. Been really happy with it. And I know a lot of people that have this one, and they seem to also like it. You will notice that this thing is actually right up against the wall. And that might be a problem if you're going to be cutting a lot of long pieces. I don't do a lot of that, but if I needed to, it's on a mobile base, and it's specifically here so that if I needed to cut something, if I needed more outfeed, I could open this door, slide this over about 12 inches, and then I have infinite outfeed. So I can push things as long as I need to all the way out. There's one other tool in here that's also on a mobile base, and that's the table saw, for the same reason. So if I'm standing right here and I need to cut something, I'm limited by how far back I can go because of this wall. But since the saw is on a mobile base, I can pull it out as far as I need to, but really only about 2 feet, 1.5 feet. And then I've got all of this room, and I could actually put a full sheet of plywood right here, push it through the saw with that moved over. I don't have enough outfeed to put a full sheet through. But the point being is the two tools that have infeed and outfeed are on mobile bases. Everything else is pretty static, I believe. So yeah. Over here above the bandsaw, got some board storage. I don't carry a lot of boards. I don't keep a lot. Don't keep a lot of sheet goods because I don't have room. This is stuff that's left over from previous projects, hardwoods that I didn't want to get rid of. And so I got some real heavy duty brackets. They hold like 1,500 pounds a piece. 3 of those, some storage up there so I can keep, there's some basswood and teak and some other things I just want to hang on to as long as I can. This is my kind of tool chest. It's all power tools. Nothing really special. Most of it's the cheapest thing I could possibly find. Some Harbor Freight, but a lot of other things. I've got like a framing nailer, which is really handy when you need it. It's not something you need very often, but it's really handy to be able to shoot a 3-inch nail into something. Hammer drills and routers and grinders and all sorts of stuff. In one of my podcasts, I talked about a Harley that I have to restore one of these days. I don't know when I'll do it. But this is it. It's a 1955 Harley Hummer. This is the gas tank. The frame is back there. There's a fender. It's a 2-stroke Harley, which is kind of weird. But it's up there until I get the time to actually work on it. Who knows when that'll be. So this is my lathe. It's an old Craftsman lathe that I'm scared to death of. It's really rattly and loose and loud and scary. I've only used it one time. And I honestly just don't have a big desire to use it. So maybe one of these days. Right now, not so much. Here's my little welding cart. This is a cheap mechanics cart that I got from Sears or something years ago. It's got some ratchets and stuff in here, but mainly in this top section I have all the stuff that goes with welding, with metalworking, all my magnets, my gloves, grinding wheels, all that stuff down in here. Can get covered up to keep sawdust out of it. And then down here is my longevity welder. It's a simple MIG welder, works fine. I've got a tank, argon tank over here, and CO2 tank. And so I can drag this, around wherever I need to do some welding, or if I need to take it outside, do it out there too. Let's talk about these. People were asking me, and I think they might have been joking, but it's actually kind of cool. So somebody was asking me about how I kept screws. And so I have these containers, and these are from Harbor Freight as well, they're really cheap. But I have different color tape on the end so that I can recognize it at a distance. And then, it says on there what kind of screw it is. But then within each one, I buy those containers of screws, I dump them into one of these sections, which are all super glued in place so they won't come out. And then I cut off the label and drop the label in there. So when I'm looking at these, I can look at the labels and see 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/4, 2 inch, and they're all right there. But each one of these boxes has a different type of screw in it. So this is wood screws, I've got one for drywall screws, one for pocket hole screws, and so when I'm doing a project, I just grab this, bring it to what I'm working on, or if I'm going to a job to install something and I know I need a certain type of thing, just grab this and I have every size possible, which is really handy. And these things stack really well and you can fit a lot in them. So you could get, quite a few of those and put them on a shelf and have like all your consumable screws and nails and all that stuff in those. It'd be really easy to take with you. Harbor Freight disc sander, thing is a beast. It'll chew your fingers off if you're not careful. Simple chop saw station, which actually doesn't do a very good job of keeping the dust in, but it's better than nothing. And that's actually hooked up to a small shop vac down here that I got specifically for it because it's on the other side of the room than the other saws. And so there wasn't a good way to run a hose to the dust collector. And so I just got that. This is an old cart I got from my grandfather when he had a shop. Keep my compressor in there with a little bendy hose so I can get to anywhere in the shop that I need to. These are full of, this kind of whole area is like consumable area. So this drawer is all sanding blocks and sandpapers, rolls of sandpaper. This one is all, there's router bits, but most of it is like staples and glue gun stuff and hinges, a bunch of little pieces that I might need. But for the majority of it is consumable stuff. Down here is just all the heavy tools that don't have another place to go, pipe wrenches and stuff like that you use once every 10 years. Over here, a lot of more consumables, rags, towels, canned air, big things of glue, metal offcuts, and then like up here, just a bunch of other junk that needs to be organized, a bunch of machine screws, decking screws, epoxy, all that stuff. My 4-color printing press is up here. I did a video, that was like one of my first videos, and I've used it a couple of times, but it stays up there for the most part. Here I've got a bunch of random materials for the CNC or for whatever, a lot of metals and plastics and acrylics, stuff like that. And then over here is my actual wood storage. It looks crazy, but I actually know what's in here and it's kind of organized even though it doesn't look like it. Hardwoods, slab type things are up top. Pallet slats are here for the most part, and then it gets bigger and wider pieces as it goes down. And this whole structure is really just 4 pallets stacked on top of each other using some extra runners as the vertical pieces on the side. So I was able to build a rack out of some extra pallets that I had. It fit perfectly in this corner because the stairs above it kind of cut it off, so it was just kind of a weird corner. But it turned this corner into a much more usable space. So I can put, like 4.5 foot boards through it and stack a lot in this space. I've also got just some other large pieces that I don't know what to do with, that are just kind of waiting around for a project. And then up against the side of it, I can put some sheets. I wouldn't put a full sheet here because it would be in the way, but I can put half sheets, big pieces of MDF, all that type of stuff. And of course, fire extinguisher. If you don't have a fire extinguisher in your shop, you need one. I think that's about it. I can't really think of anything else that I haven't covered in the shop. So yeah, I guess that's about it. We'll do another one of these for the office. It's an entirely different kind of mess, and so we'll go through that in a different time and talk about the music stuff that's in there and the 3D printing and electronics and computer stuff and photography and video and all that stuff that's in there. It's a whole different thing. So thanks for watching. I hope the 360 was cool. Let me know what you think about it, and if I missed something in here that you saw that you wanted to know more about, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.